So today we have Antoine Sakho. Is that how I'm going to start again.
Yeah.
Is that how I pronounce it? Sakho? Antoine Sakho?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So welcome everyone. Today we have Antoine Sakho, a soulful builder and a product leader with over 10 years of experience shipping award-winning apps to over 100 million users. So formerly, he was the head of product at Busu, an award-winning language learning app. And presently, he is involved in cultivating mental fitness across DAOs at twoplus.xyz, a mental fitness club for Web3. He's also leading many conversations on Web3 product management. I'm super excited to speak to you today, Antoine. How are you, really?
Hey, Kelly. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me. How am I right now? Pretty energized. It's been a long day, but I feel pretty energized, and it's nearly 8 p.m. here in Paris, and I'm going to go have dinner with some friends in a good restaurant. So that's also pretty energizing, I suppose.
Yeah, it's going to be young. It's always good to hear that you're energized after a long day. I feel like that's kind of a paradox. So, I mean, I'm sure that's testament to your mental fitness and how you take care of yourself. But before we get into that, let me ask, how did you fall down the rabbit hole if you did? If not, could you please sort of recount your journey into Web3 for us?
Yeah. I guess you fall. I guess I fell in and out of it several times.
Right, you bounced.
I bounced a little bit, but I'd say the first time actually, it's quite funny. Because I got into the first time as I dipped my toes in crypto was in the summer of 2019, and I had some cash laying around that I wanted to invest, and I was curious about investing it in crypto. And I asked one of my friends, who was more of an acquaintance at this time, who had his own crypto company, where I should invest it, which tokens I should invest in. He gave me some good tips. I invested quite a bit in Chainlink at the time, which turned out to do real well.
Nice.
And the funny thing is, I'm actually taking this call from his office, and I was giving him tips on product management at the time, and he sort of returned the favor by giving me some tips about which tokens I should invest in. And now he has one of the leading French crypto companies that is funded by Sakho, and then I've just been sort of working from their office for the last few hours. So awesome. That's kind of how it started, and then about a year and a half later, these assets had realized nice paper gains. So as is often the case, and I think it's even been theorized, this cycle, you start sort of speculating, and then, your holdings grow, and then you're like, okay, maybe I should learn a little bit more about this. So there was this, and then also as a product person, I'm have a deep interest and curiosity in technology, and I was starting to listen to some podcasts, probably with Naval and so on at the time. And I was realizing, wow, this is just really, really interesting. And, this is one of the next big waves of computing. And I don't want to miss out. So I really, really need to learn about it more. And I think this is approximately when I started reading the Bitcoin white paper, the Ethereum white paper, starting, learning a bit about solidity, and just trying to understand, the basic technology that was powering Ethereum and various other blockchains. And approximately at that time, funnily enough, I got introduced to a DAO, to actually a DAO tooling DAO, Aragon.
Okay.
If you're familiar with them.
No, but I read your paper on them.
Okay, no, I mean they're one of the OG DAO tooling frameworks, and so I got introduced to them, and they had sort of a reorg, and they needed someone to help them rebuild their product team and product department. So I sort of jumped in there, and which was great because I was really curious about DAOs and the potential of DAOs, being myself part of a few communities that were already sort of self-governed and decentralized. And I felt, wow, this is super interesting for that. And also having studied politics quite extensively, and I would say having some libertarian and anarchist leanings myself. I felt DAOs are definitely the way, potentially a way beyond like the nation state as we have it today. So I was also really excited by sort of the ideological sort of promise of DAOs at the time. Then kept reading more, learning more, playing around with NFTs, playing around with DeFi as well. And yeah, this is sort of led me here.
I love that. I always love hearing about the different ways that people, quote unquote, stumble into the space. And it's just incredible because people from every single type of background you can think of, levels of experience, they arise in this space, but they meet each other at the same level of zeal. If I might say, even though they're from different, industries, cultures, geography as well, it's quite interesting how they all like coalesce into one big body of people. There's so many things I want to unpack from your falling down rabbit hole. So, you started with investment, you started with the financial gain. You're like, wow, what's this? You compared it to kind of, tantamount to the .com boom in the way that technology is really like leveling up from there. And then I love that you went into the actual, like the technology and the code behind, like underlying it, like Solidity, reading the theory, like the white papers and everything. And I feel like the way that you approached it with a balance of, learning and being hands-on is a really great way to get into Web3, right? That's awesome. And I totally agree. The libertarian anarchist ethos is such it's a fun one in here because there's so many nomads, like you and I, and it's like quite aligned with a lot of what, like the type of things like DAOs and the way everything is decentralized by nature. So that's really interesting. I want to ask, so this podcast is about why, Web3 is inherently human. So could you finish this sentence for me? Web3 is human because.
So I would say Web3 is human because it is made by humans. For humans.
I love that.
And I mean, maybe to sort of add a bit more flavor to what I just said. I guess it is made by humans. When I'm saying this, I'm thinking about DAOs especially, right? I'm thinking about more sort of, or at least, ideologically more human-centric organizations or humane, you could say, organizations than, your traditional corporate. And for humans, because again, I think the ethos of this space, there's really something about self-sovereignty that you don't necessarily find in the more traditional tech. Yeah, and I guess you could also add it is owned by humans, as sort of the at least fully like decentralized protocols are owned by often a confluence of users who also happen to be investors, who also happen to be contributors. And you could also say that traditional corporates are owned by humans because even corporations are controlled and owned by humans when you go down. But I don't know. It feels closer in the case of Web3. It's not as far removed behind so many layers of behind so many institutional layers. It's a very sort of direct relationship between capital and users and producers.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I think I could insinuate from your definition, right? The basic trends of, say, commerce and people in one place, it's kind of, gotten further from the idea behind it in the past decade. But now we see this trend that brings us back to how it can work for us, not against us, and how we can also work together towards, for it. So this symbiosis, okay, awesome. So I want to get into, actually, before I get into your extensive, experience in product management and doing things for mental fitness in the space, your ETH address cryptoyogi.eth. What is this? Where did this come from? And it's cool. Like, I want to know more about it.
Yeah, it's a great question, and there's a funny story behind it. Yeah, when I was kind of going down the rabbit hole, like the first time going down the rabbit hole, so it was about like March 2021, and I at the time I was in Indonesia, so I spent most of the pandemic in Indonesia, having a blast. And
I love it.
I was sort of realizing one of my very very old dreams of going to surf some of the world's best waves in an archipelago called the Mentawai Islands of the coast of Sumatra, and it's really like these sort of like little paradise islands, clear blue water, coconut trees everywhere.
Wow.
Perfect waves, and really really small islands, like the size of a couple of football fields maybe. And so I was in this sort of like surf resort, because you have to stay in a resort. Like there's basically nothing on these islands, and like, so apart from being in a resort. And at some point, a couple of guys arrived in the resort, and they were both of them were, Westerners, but they were living in this town in Bali called Ubud, which is sort of like the spiritual center of Bali. And
I love Ubud.
Yeah, so Ubud, right? So guys from Ubud, you can just picture in your head.
Yeah.
Guys from Ubud, the real spiritual guys, right? Guys from Ubud. But both of them were also into crypto, and like it's more like trading and speculating. And this was March 2021. Like it was the shitcoin boom, and
right.
And both of them were like really into Shiba Inu at the time, and and they were like, dude, you should totally invest a little bit in Shiba Inu. And I was like, there's no fundamentals. This looks like a total shitcoin. And I was like, whatever. I'll just put a little bit just for the hell of it. And it actually turned out to be a really good investment.
Yeah, that popped off.
But I remember telling one of these guys at some point, like referring to them, that they were like just a bunch of crypto yogis, and I don't know, just I kind of stuck with me, and I was like, I kind of like it, because he was like, no, I'm not a crypto yogi, and I was like, all right, I'll be the crypto yogi then. And that's it. That's the story of crypto yogi. But yeah, I kind of like that in a way also, because for me it sort of brings together things that are often considered to be sort of extreme ends or opposites, right? On the one hand, sort of very sort of left brain, materialist, technological, crypto, and then on the other hand, sort of more like right brain, like spiritual, like yogis. And I always seek sort of to marry things, or like bring disparate things together. And yeah, I really like that, and also like the idea of using, like, changing the narrative around crypto from this being a degen space to it being more of a regen space as well. So that also plays into that.
Yeah, I love it. It's kind of like, how can crypto be Zen? And it's like a oxymoron, like, I love it. Yeah. And it's very fitting. It stands out. You can't forget crypto yogi. So cool. That's awesome. Cool. So you were head of product at Wusu for how many years?
5 years.
Wow, awesome. So yeah, Busuu, a language learning app, is like a competitor to Rosetta Stone or Duolingo. What was it like working at Busuu? And did you love it? Did you hate it? Why did you?
All of it. It's like for me, a role in a high growth startup like this is, it's like a relationship. You love it and you hate it, and all of it at the same time, and you go through every phase. But like looking back, this has just been one of the best times in my life, and I just learned so much and grew so much, and I was really just having fun, like building a product for myself. I'm a language learner. I love learning languages, and so I got really lucky. I think in product management, especially, it's really important if you can get to work on a product that you love using yourself, because then you're also just a power user, and there's a lot of like passion that comes from it, and then you derive intuition, you derive just energy from it as well. So yeah, had a lot of fun, worked with some really incredible people, got to really build some really cool things and ship them to hundreds of millions of users, and yeah, changed the lives of a few of a few people along the way.
Yeah, nothing better than that. How many languages do you speak?
Well, sort of depends how you define speak, I guess. Right. I would say I'm like native in French and English. I'm fluent in Spanish. I can definitely get around in Japanese. I used to be able to get around in German. I'm getting around in Portuguese these days, and also I'm learning Sanskrit at the moment.
Wow! Do you use Busuu yourself?
I used to, like to learn German and then Portuguese and Spanish, but we don't really do like quasi-dead ancient languages.
Wow! Yeah, awesome. I'm kind of gonna go off tangent, but what's your view on languages? Still relevant or GMI?
Totally GMI. Like languages, totally GMI. Yeah, 100%. I think it was the thing we would always get right when we were at Busuu. It's like there would always be people coming and saying, "What about Google Translate? What about live translation and all these things?" And we're like, "Well, yeah, this is great. If all you're trying to get out of an interaction with someone is transactional, but if you actually want to connect with someone really, personally and deeply and emotionally, you actually need to share a language, right?" And so, this is also what we saw in Busuu a lot, right? Is we had quite a few people who, obviously, there's still a lot of people learning languages more for work or study reasons, but you also had a good chunk of people just learning it just for fun or culture, or they were just passionate about K-pop, for instance. So like Busuu just launched Korean because there's so many K-pop and Korean drama fans in the world, right? And so like now, like the number of Korean language learners in the world has just like exploded over the last few years. So yeah, it's like it will remain as just a way to see the world differently as well.
Yeah, there's definitely a difference between speaking a language and speaking a language. One is just like putting words and grammar together, and then the other is really understanding the context and the nuances of different ways you say things. And yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it's not only is it great for like neuroplasticity, it's a great skill to keep honing, and to your point, expands your worldview in a way that just traveling can't.
And I mean, you touched on this as well. If it's true, I forgot to mention that as well. Like neuroplasticity, right? Like learning a language actually keeps your brains healthy, right? So it's one of the best brain training exercises you could ever do is actually learn a different language. So yeah, that's also a really great byproduct of learning a language.
Totally. Yeah, even if it's just 5 to 10 minutes a day, I highly recommend that. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's get into product management, right? So firstly, could you define, what's a product in the context of a business or an organization? How do you define a product?
How do you define a product? I mean, in my case, I've been doing software product management mostly. So, that entails, any sort of software that can run itself, on some server and some client, and that provides a service in someone's life, without necessarily needing more people in the background to actually provide that service, right? So this is this would probably be like the easiest differentiation is on the one hand you have services, right, and for that service to provide a service in someone's life, you actually need like human input every time, whereas a product just stands on its own and is able to deliver this service without any further human input once it's been deployed.
Got it. Okay, cool. I heard a talk that you gave. I think the main idea behind this talk was that customer experience is the new, user experience. Can you expand on that a little bit?
I don't think I did a talk about that though.
Oh. I
don't think I did a talk about that. Yeah, no, I think it was just a tweet. It was just a tweet.
It was a tweet.
It was just a tweet. Yeah.
For me, every tweet is a talk. Anyway.
No. I was just shit posting, then nothing serious.
So, okay, that was a very deep shit post. Was there any more meaning behind this shit post?
Yeah, no. So I think this was within the context of 2plus. We were having a Twitter Spaces about CX, contributor experience, and I guess we were just looking for sort of like taglines for it. And I don't know, it was just so obvious. And it's probably other people had tweeted this before, even like I think this was just in the air at that time. But it was just a fun meme, and I guess the meaning behind it is that the core sort of experience design challenge of DAO creators is contributor experience. Now the question is, is the DAO the product, right? Or is the DAO creating a product, or both, right? So if the DAO is the product, yeah, you could say contributor experience design is the new user experience design, because then the contribution is usage. But I think there's these are all super like blurry. Like there's blurry lines everywhere, and it's pretty fuzzy when you get really into the weeds of it. Yeah,
it's very circular. It's mind-boggling too. Cool. I want to use this moment to kind of pivot maybe into mental fitness, and your role as founding athlete of 2plus DAO. You recently led a DAO gymnasium of 15 to 20 DAO leaders advocating for mental fitness. How did that go? And tell me about how that went down.
Yeah, so we like as 2plus led like a first sort of cohort, which we sort of riffed quite a lot on the whole sort of mental fitness metaphor. And so instead of calling it a course, we called it a gymnasium. Actually, we kind of like the ancient sort of ancient Greek idea of gymnasiums as being places where people take care of not just of their bodies, but also like historically they would also sort of take care of their minds and souls and have debates and learn about the world. In a gymnasium, it would be a lot more than just pumping iron. And so Louis, who is actually like the instigator of 2plus, actually led that cohort himself. So this was an alpha cohort. So this was the very, very first. And the point of it was really to learn and test. Before sort of going more like public and go bigger and so on. This was really sort of a little sort of test drive with about 15, 20 DAO leaders. We had some contributors from Aragon, from Radar, from Seed Club, Gitcoin, and a few other prominent DAOs. And yeah, overall, the feedback was great, and it's been like super impactful for a small group of people that we'll optimize for. And in terms of what we were offering, there was sort of like two pillars. One was really around like mental fitness, so how to become and then remain like mentally fit. As a DAO contributor, that's working in a 24/7 sort of always on, like, Discord and other environments, like sort of never stopping and really caring for that. I mean, that was sort of the impetus for 2plus, was just looking at sort of the burnout that we see is like so common in the space. And then, the other pillar was more around sort of like DAO sort of best practices. So I led, for instance, a workshop there around meetings, like how to run good meetings. We had Steph, another founding athlete, who ran a meeting about conflict resolution. We had The Ready. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're like a future of work company, super cool consultancy around every future of work and org design. And they also run a workshop more around, how to run a DAO or how to run a self-managed organization, because that's really what they're really super knowledgeable about. And so there were kind of these two pillars, more mental fitness, and then the other one was more around sort of DAO ops. But the next season will probably focus things a lot more on mental fitness specifically. Yeah.
Cool. I know that you said that a gymnasium was like a course. Is there like a equivalent to, say, lifting weight in a gym, or like doing cardio in the context of achieving DAO mental fitness?
Well, so what there was as well, I forgot to mention this. So the experience, there were workshops and talks, as I mentioned, conflict resolution, on meetings, or like peak performance, flow states, and so on. But then a really key part of this, and this is something that will strengthen even more in the next season in the next gymnasium, was the whole sort of habit formation and coaching part of things. So we're using a really cool product called Mochi, where people can sort of commit collectively to taking new habits, and they might take up different new habits individually, but then they have to stake some ETH, right, to actually keeping this habit, and they have to do check-ins and so on, and they kind of collectively check on each other's progress. And then if they don't actually follow through the commitment, the ETH gets slashed. So it's kind of a
Wow.
sort of staking for good habits product. So super cool. And so we'll deepen actually the use of that. We want to work with a lot more mindfulness experts. As I said, just do a lot more goal setting so that both beginners and intermediates can benefit like 10x from their practice as well. And the next season will also go beyond the DAO operators and will really be for anyone working in Web3. And yeah, the experience we really want to provide for the next season is like having is for 2plus to be like your good, really, really good gym coach, mental,
like personal trainer,
mental fitness personal trainer, so that you can avoid burnout, perform at your best, and have fun along the way.
That's awesome. I think that's one of the most required things in the space.
Mm-hmm.
Every day it's like a sprint. You can't catch up. You can't. You don't have time to catch your breath, and it's okay to not. I think that's what people need to understand, and that it's a long game that we're playing, right?
Yeah. And it's okay to miss out. It's okay to miss out also.
It's okay. FOMO is part of it. Yeah. Oh, my internet cut out for a second.
Okay.
We have 5 minutes in this meeting, so I guess we could wrap it up. Actually,
I think we can do like five more minutes would be great.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's wrap it up. There's tons of people, human beings like us who are just getting started in this journey. Do you have any holistic advice for these newcomers who might want to work in a DAO themselves, or how can they have the best experience possible?
Yeah, that's a great question. I guess I would have loved to hear something like that. I so funny. Got started contributing to DAOs. I mean, the first thing I would say is really sort of be clear with your own interests, right? So what are you really like passionate about? Because you can find like DAOs about like so many things today, right? Whether it's venture DAOs, if you're passionate about investing, whether it's like media DAOs, whether it's social clubs, whether it's developer DAOs, like, what is one thing that you're really passionate about? What are a few things that you're really passionate about? And who are there DAOs that are actually like forming around like that interest of yours? I would say it's probably a good start. Or I think more generally, like, what is the interesting? Is there like a cool intersection of crypto and one of your interests, right? So I don't know, if you're, and I've seen that for so many people, like one of my good friends, Daniel, started RNDAO, which is sort of a research DAO, and like they do a lot around governance research, and he's been like a governance nerd for years, and obviously crypto is super interesting for him, and so they're obviously doing a lot at the intersection of governance and crypto. But yeah, I think try to find that intersect is probably a good fun. And then the other thing I would say is also just someone, Bomik from CCS, who was one of the instigators of CCS, actually mentioned this term to me, which really stuck, and I really like the idea of DAO dating. So when you sort of get around and look for projects to contribute to, it can be a really good idea to just explore, join quite a lot of Discord servers, see what's happening, like compare and contrast. And sort of consider your stuff like sort of visualize your own funnel throughout all of these different DAOs, because some of them maybe you'll run a Discord and you'll just check the vibe and you'll be like, okay, that's not for me. Maybe others you'll maybe go to an onboarding call and love it, but maybe others will be like, okay, now I kind of get a better understanding of what's needed here. Maybe my skills aren't as needed, And maybe if you start with, I don't know, 10, 20 potential DAOs, maybe you'll end up with 2 or 3 that you start contributing in. And then as you start contributing in, you might realize that it's working better in one than the other. So I would just say at the start, I think it's good to have sort of, I would say, like, go broad and just see with time, like, which ones kind of stick, so hence the DAO dating name.
Love it. Yeah. Play around. The world is your oyster in Web3. So
that's it.
Yeah, just have fun. All right. In the interest of time, I'm going to wrap this up, but I would love, that was so interesting. I have so many more questions, but thank you so much for your time today, Antoine. And,
thank you, Kelly.
All the best.
Yeah, the same. And keep doing the great work. I think it's, we need more of these conversations around how to make Web3 more human.